Deep within Thailand's Tham Luang cave, a group of young soccer players and their coach found themselves trapped by rising floodwaters. With time running out and the monsoon rains showing no mercy, what seemed like a hopeless situation soon turned into one of the most daring rescue missions the world had ever seen. A team of fearless rescuers came together, racing against time plus the relentless floodwaters. Every moment brought new dangers as they battled through the treacherous pitch-black tunnels, knowing one wrong move could end in disaster. Could they really pull off the impossible and save the boys before it was too late? This is the Tham Luang Cave rescue story. On the afternoon of June 23, 2018, the boys of the Wild Boars Football Club wrapped up their regular practice session. The team, consisting of boys between the ages of 11 and 16, had been training under the watchful eye of their coach and assistant coach. As practice ended, the head coach said goodbye to the boys and shifted his focus to preparing for the older squad's upcoming match, setting his phone aside for a while. Later that evening, the coach checked his phone and noticed several missed calls from concerned parents. Their sons hadn't returned home, and hours had already passed. Growing worried, the coach tried contacting his players, but no one, including the assistant coach, was answering. Eventually, 13-year-old Sang Paul, one of the boys, picked up the phone. He explained that his mother had picked him up after practice, but the rest of the team had headed off to the nearby Tham Luang caves with the assistant coach for a bit of exploration. Alarm bells rang in the coach's mind. He rushed to the caves, and what he found confirmed his worst fears. At the cave's entrance, he saw the boys' bicycles left behind. The team was still inside, but what was once a fun outing had turned into a nightmare. The cave entrance was now flooded with water, heavy rains having started while the boys were deep inside. They were trapped, cut off by the rising waters, and no one knew exactly how to reach them, or if they were still alive. Police officers soon arrived at the cave entrance, discovering more abandoned belongings, including backpacks and personal items. The situation worsened as the water levels continued to rise, making it impossible for anyone to go deeper into the cave. Any immediate hope of a search was dashed by the relentless flooding. As the crisis escalated, local authorities scrambled for solutions, and special Thai Navy SEAL divers were dispatched to Chiang Rai. A rescue operation slowly took shape, but with each passing hour, the urgency grew. Amid the chaos, a British civilian named Vernon Unsworth approached Thai officials, offering his expertise. Unsworth, an experienced caver, had explored the Tham Luang cave system for years and knew its treacherous layout. Living in the area, he understood the challenges rescuers would face. Tham Luang, Thailand's fourth longest cave, stretched over 10 kilometers, with a narrow entrance that split into multiple paths about a kilometer in. If the boys were still alive, Unsworth believed they would have instinctively headed toward higher ground deeper inside the cave. Unsworth's arrival proved to be a stroke of luck. His familiarity with the cave's intricacies was invaluable, and he quickly put Thai authorities in contact with the British Cave Rescue Council. In response, two highly skilled British cave divers, John Volanthen and Rick Stanton, were flown in to assist. Both seasoned veterans in high-risk cave rescues and body recovery missions, Volanthen and Stanton had a deep trust in each other and a shared experience that made them the perfect team for this perilous mission. As each day passed, more specialists joined the rescue effort, but hope was fading fast. The boys had only planned to explore the cave for about an hour, leaving them with almost no food. To make matters worse, heavy rains continued to flood the cave system, making rescue attempts more complicated and dangerous. Despite the relentless efforts of the Thai Navy SEALs, the rising water levels made it nearly impossible to make significant progress. When British cave divers John Volanthen and Rick Stanton arrived, their presence was met with skepticism. Some wondered how these two older men, without military training, could succeed where even the Navy SEALs were struggling. For John Volanthen, cave diving is more than just an interest. It's a passion he pursues in his spare time while he works as an IT consultant. His dive partner Rick Stanton was a retired firefighter. Neither had extreme athletic backgrounds, yet both possessed a rare skill set that was perfectly suited to the task at hand. In the world of cave diving, these two civilians were considered among the best. Moving through the Tham Luang cave system wasn't a one-size-fits-all operation. It required a combination of skills. Some sections were fully submerged and demanded diving. Others could be crossed on foot, and certain areas needed climbing to move forward. Rick and John slowly inched their way through the submerged passages, carefully laying out guideline ropes to ensure they could find their way back. The first dive was particularly grueling, with the cave's strong currents constantly pushing against them. Once the guidelines were set, other divers could use them to pull themselves through, making future dives more manageable. Their goal was to reach a section called Pattaya Beach, a larger chamber at a higher elevation that they hoped the boys had reached to escape the rising waters. But their progress was cut short. Torrential rains intensified and conditions inside the cave worsened. The rising waters seemed to be sealing the boys' fate, but giving up wasn't an option. Outside, Thai Navy SEALs were working non-stop to drain the cave, trying every method possible to lower the water levels. Among those leading the efforts was Saman Kunan, a former Navy SEAL who had returned to offer his help. The SEALs had set up a base at Chamber 3, a dry area deep inside the cave, which served as their operational hub. It was here that they stored diving equipment, air tanks, and other supplies, hoping against hope that they could reach the boys in time. Despite the dire situation, no effort was spared. Volunteers and rescue teams worked tirelessly day and night, doing everything they could to divert rivers, find alternate entrances, and pump water out of the cave. As conditions inside worsened, the pressure outside only grew. With slightly improved weather and renewed energy from the local teams, the British cave divers, John Volanthen and Rick Stanton, decided to push forward again. This dive would be their longest and most challenging yet. They were determined to reach Pattaya Beach, the chamber where they hoped the boys might be sheltering from the rising waters. Hours passed as Rick and John worked their way through the flooded tunnels, each stroke taking them deeper into the darkness. Finally, they reached Pattaya Beach, the highest point in the cave system. But to their disappointment, the chamber was empty. There was still no sign of the boys. At this point, the dive had gone far beyond what was considered safe. Divers typically follow the rule of thirds. 1/3 of the air for the way in, 1/3 for the return, and 1/3 as a safety reserve. Rick and John had already passed that threshold. By all measures, it was time to turn back. But they didn't. They couldn't. Determined to find the boys, they pressed on, laying down more guideline ropes and moving even deeper into the cave system. Then, just as they were about to surface for air, something unexpected happened. A flicker of light. Voices echoing through the cave. It was an astonishing moment. After 10 days trapped in the dark, the boys and their coach were alive. The discovery sent shockwaves through Thailand and the world. News of the boys' survival quickly spread, capturing global attention. For Thailand, the relief was overwhelming. Families, authorities, and the nation as a whole rejoiced. But the challenge was far from over. Now the focus shifted. How could they bring the boys out safely from the depths of the cave? The next day, 3 Thai Navy SEALs entered the cave to stay with the boys, giving them support and reassurance as the rescue operation moved into its most difficult phase. While the world celebrated the discovery of the wild boars, the rescuers knew the hardest part was still ahead. Finding them was one thing, getting them out was an entirely different challenge. As more water was pumped out of the cave, the rescue teams raced against time. Rainfall was relentless, threatening to flood the cave further. Ideas for how to extract the boys began pouring in from around the world. Even Elon Musk got involved, designing a small submarine for the mission. But it was too large and unwieldy for the tight, twisting passages of Tham Luang. Other suggestions were put forward, including drilling a rescue shaft similar to the method used to save the Chilean miners in 2010. Some even proposed leaving the boys in the cave until monsoon season ended months later, keeping them supplied with food and essentials in the meantime. But none of these plans were feasible. Teaching the boys to dive out wasn't a viable option either. Many of them couldn't swim, and the flooded cave system was nothing like a swimming pool. The narrow, pitch-black tunnels were treacherous, and one wrong move or moment of panic could have fatal consequences. Drilling was also ruled out. The boys were nearly a kilometer underground, and even if drilling could be done, locating the exact spot and breaking through solid rock would take too long. and waiting for the monsoon to pass was too risky. Oxygen levels in the chamber were already dropping, and it was clear the boys wouldn't survive for months without serious danger. Then, tragedy struck. Siman Kunan, a former Navy SEAL who had volunteered to help with the mission, lost his life during one of the dives. His death highlighted just how perilous the rescue was and reminded everyone involved of the stakes. With options running out, a last-ditch, incredibly risky plan surfaced. Sedate the boys and guide them through the cave while they were unconscious. It was a radical solution, and one wrong step could lead to disaster. But time was running out, and this was the only chance they had left. Rick Stanton contacted Dr. Richard Harris, an Australian anesthesiologist and expert cave diver. At first, Harris hesitated, convinced that the odds of success were slim. But with no other options and the clock ticking, he agreed to help. A specialized team of the world's top cave divers was assembled. The plan was risky. Each boy would be placed in a wetsuit and given 2 sedative injections to keep them unconscious throughout the journey. Full-face diving masks providing positive air pressure to prevent water from seeping in were carefully fitted to their faces. Their hands were tied behind their backs to stop them from moving, and oxygen tanks were strapped to their chests to keep their heads upright and their airways clear. Tethered to their rescuers, the unconscious boys were guided through the dark, flooded tunnels. It was an extraordinarily dangerous operation. If a mask failed or a mistake was made, the boys could drown. Now their lives were entirely in the hands of the divers, who had to remain calm and focused as they carried out what would become one of the most daring rescue missions in history. As the divers progressed, the boys were carried on stretchers when they reached dry sections of the cave. The sedatives didn't last long enough for the entire journey, so the divers had to administer more doses at key points. Every step of the rescue was critical, with the rescuers fully aware of just how delicate the situation was. But then, good news! The first 2 boys made it safely to Chamber 3. A wave of hope spread through the team. The unthinkable was becoming reality. Their risky plan was actually working. With water levels now lower, the Thai Navy SEALs and volunteers transported the boys through the cave's rocky sections on stretchers. By the end of the first day, 4 boys were out. Another 4 were rescued the next day. On the third and final day, rescuers focused on the last 4 boys and their coach. As everything seemed to be going smoothly, a critical problem surfaced. The last boy, the smallest in the group, didn't fit the positive pressure mask. The divers tried repeatedly to secure it, but the mask couldn't form a watertight seal. In a last-ditch effort, they used a smaller recreational diving mask. It barely fit and kept slipping off, but the divers secured it as best they could and prayed it would hold. Finally, the miraculous news came. All the boys and their coach were out of the cave. The world watched in disbelief as the rescue mission, against all odds, ended in complete success. But the victory wasn't without loss. One Thai Navy SEAL, Petty Officer Beirut Pekbara, contracted a severe blood infection during the rescue. Despite battling the infection for a year, he passed away from complications. His sacrifice, along with that of another SEAL, Siman Kunan, was a somber reminder of the immense risks taken to save the boys. In the end, the collaboration between the British divers and the Thai Navy SEALs was seamless. They had worked together to pull off one of the most incredible rescues the world had ever seen. If you made it this far, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel for more stories like this, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching.